Is there a kid?
No. He's not been here.
Oh. I thought he was.
He never takes back. He said he's gonna get it out.
Yeah, he emailed me and I emailed him all the agenda and everything, so.
I think he's doing good if he can come here for 20 minutes, but I can't see being here for 3 hours.
Yeah, I know.
Not in these chairs.
For that long.
Those two places are.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, they
I'm good right now, I guess. The next one will be.
How do you feel? I don't have this thing, it's It's one of the nonsense. It's just the
Who does Georgia play? I didn't look back at that. Something like that.
It's the team that made that 316 last year, the guy with the Rex back.
I hope the Mays do it first.
St. Mary.
Joseph.
Joe's or something.
Who knows? I told you what I said about computer
I just
literacy.
hope they make it to the first.
These
Okay,
guys
he was in the top one. Did they
could
pull
win it all with that Brazil guy.
It was tight.
Who was that? Sorry, I was looking.
Arkansas.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no doubt.
I guess I'm ostracized here on the end or something. I guess I'm ostracized here on the
I
end.
guess you are, yeah.
Can you move over one?
Southport beat Wisconsin.
Yep, I won. And it's funny, the kid that scored the last winning 2-pointer
Vandy
has not, he's one of their high scorers, but he hasn't hit a 2-point basket all
in
year.
the second half.
He only shoots threes and he shot the 2 to win it by 1.
Well,
Good, how are you?
I think it's good.
See you. Yeah, well, I used to be around motoring time.
Not a lot of see.
Oh, yeah. Well, you and Andy both.
Yeah, you and Jeff gonna beat me up?
You only called him from his RV.
Oh, for over there? Butch was supposed to come this week and then he canceled.
Yeah,
So he got tied up.
It's
Not this week, coming Monday, but he's not coming.
we've got a little bit of time.
We do, but and Butch doesn't have to be there. It's McCallum.
Okay.
So he doesn't.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
When they want to do it. Yeah.
we would love to.
Less of an agenda, less of a timetable and a schedule.
Well, how we can.
Well, that part, I'll just send you his contact. You reach out.
Yeah, yeah, okay, thank you.
Cut me out of the middle of that. I just need to be-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Shoot me a contact.
I'll send it to you.
That's great. How are you, sir?
pretty good.
Yeah, I will do that.
You're good. Yeah, I got it.
Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Let me call to order the meeting of, a workshop meeting of the Highlands Town Board of Commissioners for March 19th, 2026. The first item on the agenda will be to review and approve the agenda. Do we have any changes to the proposed agenda? Motion we approve. Okay, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you. The next item will be the approval of the February 19th work session meeting minutes. Do we have any changes to those minutes?
Will they be approved?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. Now, before we start, Gibby, do we have our town attorney online?
I'm here. Oh, sorry.
We just don't see you from a, we're,
There
we go. Very good.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item will be the Highlands Code of Ordinances Amendment, Article 2, the noise ordinance. And I'll ask Chief Holland to come up and make a presentation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I'm here to ask the board to take a closer look at our current noise ordinance and nuisance ordinance. As they are written and enforced right now, they can conflict with each other, and that's creating confusion for both officers, residents, and the visitors. The noise ordinance itself is clear. Officers respond to complaints, measure the sound, and determine whether it exceeds the established decibel limit. That approach is objective, measurable, and provides a consistent standard for everyone. The issue arises when the sound does not exceed that limit, but complaints continue. In those cases, enforcement often shifts to Section 815, noise producing activities and frequent sources of complaint, and the broader definition of a noise disturbance, which includes any sound that annoys or disturbs a reasonable person based on volume, duration, and location. The challenge is that Section 815 and that definition are much more subjective. They allow the noise to be treated as a violation based on perception. As a result, someone can be fully compliant with the noise ordinance, staying within legal decibel limits, and still receive a warning, citation, or be asked to lower the volume. That creates two different standards, one based on measurable data and another based on perception. This puts officers in a difficult position, requiring them to rely on objective tools in one situation and subjective judgment in another. It also creates uncertainty for residents and visitors. People don't know whether compliance means staying under the decibel limit or simply avoiding complaints altogether. Because of this, similar situations can be handled differently depending on the officer or the circumstances. That lack of consistency can make enforcement feel unpredictable and at times unfair to some. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that nuisance noise shouldn't be addressed. There are absolutely situations where ongoing or disruptive noise needs attention. However, as it stands, an ongoing disturbance can effectively override the decibel standard, and that's where the conflict lies. What I'm asking is for the board to review these ordinances and work toward aligning them so they function together instead of against each other. One possible approach would be to refine the nuisance standard, perhaps more clearly defining unreasonable intrusive noise and tying it to objective factors such as decibel levels, time of day, and duration. That kind of clarity would help officers enforce the rules more consistently and give residents and visitors a better understanding of what is expected. And I've provided a sample ordinance that maybe the attorney and you can look at to see what's a better fit for.
So could you not just, and I'm not sure exactly where we are on our ordinance here, but from what it sounds like you're talking about is that they come in and they measure it and it's not below or above a certain decibel. And then they say, but it's an intrusive noise and they have to go to a different section of the noise ordinance. Is that what you're saying?
That's what we've been doing for the last probably 7-8 years.
Why couldn't you just combine that and say it has to be below this decibel level or can't be in intrusive noise? Because you could be below the decibel level and still be this intrusive
That's what we're
noise.
asking for.
So
Yeah.
if you just put them together as
Yeah.
it's a violation of it if it is above this decibel level or it is an intrusive noise, and that's all in one.
Right. And so what the
So you don't have
ordinance,
to go anywhere else.
so we don't really go, so we're not really going somewhere else because it's all under the nuisance.
I understand that.
So that's kind of what I'm asking for is less of a broad or a less broad definition of noise disturbance and making it like an intrusive noise. But for instance, for an example, when you have one street, they're playing a radio and we're getting multiple calls, a lot of calls to this business. They're playing a radio. Well, because it's because it's a disturbance to the neighbors, then we have to factor that in, but yet they're clearly under the decibel reading. So we're trying, it's got to be something clear and concise that we can tell whoever is producing the noise or the complainant, they're under the legal decibel limit. Therefore, they're allowed to have it.
So what's that? I mean, from what I understand, because I've had people complain on both sides of this. what's happening right now is you have, somebody says, everything that we're talking about at the moment from a standpoint of examples are in the commercial district. This is not somebody's house. This is, although it does play into it, because within the commercial district, somebody lives there and wants it silent when they want it silent. So what's happening is, according to the complaints, and obviously I was not there witnessing anything, I'm just saying secondhand, is police officers are called, they're being noisy, they're loud, their music is too loud. So you go to this business, stand at the property line of the business, and it measures at 40 decibels, 45 decibels, 50 decibels or lower. And they're still made to turn it down because the neighbor has told this, the neighbor goes, well, yeah, but it bothers me. It's annoying to me.
I just say, I'm sorry.
Well, that's what. I think
That's
we're
what we
trying to-
want.
We're trying to be
I
able to do
just-
that because based on decibel levels and time of day. Now,
Right.
after a certain time of day,
Right.
the commercial district goes down, the residential levels are already lower. But my point being that right now it's the police officers go out and it's, unfortunately, the police officers are accused of being biased one way or the other because there's no defined, if it's under this decibel level from the property line of the offender, then no, within the hours that it's allowed to be, it should not be a bother because that's the rules. And I looked at the decibel levels and everything else that we have compared to at least 6 different other smaller towns, some of them bigger. That's just because it's kind of hard to find towns our size. And we are extremely consistent with the decibel levels. I'm just saying it's almost the norm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we looked at them when we put this together.
And we,
yeah.
but the issue is with the noise disturbance definition, a sound that annoys, disturbs, or is continuation. And so clearly, if someone's playing their radio at a business or even in residential areas, then it's annoying this person. Well, we have 2 different standards there, subjective and objective. So because we have the subjective standard, then we're having to play both sides or try to determine which side we're going to side with.
Well, maybe, and I'm just thinking out loud here, maybe we can say the subjective part of it is more in the residential area. And the decibel level isn't, if it's in the commercial area and it's clearly during the time that people can be in the commercial area and it's not exceeding the decibel level, which we have on there, then I'm sorry, you live above a traffic jam, you know?
I agree.
And I don't know anything else you can do because you can't be silent in a commercial area, regardless of whether it's noise, Jake breaks or anything else, you know?
Right.
It just
No,
doesn't,
that's
it's not unreasonable if you want to live in this mixed, mixed commercial residential thing, then you're going to have to know that you're going to be more noisy than you are out in the residential areas.
Correct. And I think that's what the goal is, to rectify and make it objective and not subjective.
Well, and that's why I say if we make the objective part of it be applicable and not the subjective part be applicable to the commercial areas. Is that what you're?
Well, and I use the example too. Of course, I live in a residential area, but I'm across the lake from the sewer treatment plant.
So you hear?
That blower kicks on and I'm sit out on my screen porch and the lake amplifies and I'm sitting there and my decibel reader is telling me 48 to 50 decibels. And that's annoying to me, but it still meets the ordinance is my point. We're not going to tell them to turn the sewer treatment plant off because Jeff's bothered. Because that's unfair and otherwise. My point is that it needs to be, even in the residential area, I think it needs to be, I think it all should be somewhat, I think residential, I don't mind a little bit of subjectivity, but commercial is where most of the issues have come up.
Well, we have a lot of calls too out in residential. If you take the smokehouse for consideration, when they have a live band out there, that's in a residential area. And obviously, we don't have a problem asking them to turn it down, but if we could just clean it up some, like what you're suggesting so that it's less subjective, that we don't have to fall back, that somebody's not going to read this ordinance and, well, right here it says if it's a noise, well, it's annoying me. So we need to be able to have a clear and concise standard so that we can say they're under the decibel limit. There's nothing we can do. Now residential areas, I understand, but
But here's the subjectivity part that's hard. The smokehouse was cited 3 times for having music in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday on their outside deck. Okay. The person that, I won't mention names, they don't live here anymore, but the people that complained were my next door neighbor. And I lived right above the smokehouse up on Holt Knob, and I could sit on my back deck and listen to the music. Now, it wasn't loud. It wasn't like a concert. It was an acoustic guitar with a little bit of amplification. And I could hear it just by the nature of the terrain and otherwise. It was not annoying them either from a but it annoyed them, but it was well below the decibel level, even in the residential area at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. But they were cited $100, $500, $1,000, or whatever the numbers were. And then the next time would be the same, whatever the max is. I don't know that. I'm just saying that Smokehouse had to pay these fines because one person was annoyed at a level they found to be a nuisance. It was bothering them. But I mean, simultaneously, the next door neighbor is sitting on the porch going, hey, let's go listen to the music and sit on the porch. It's a beautiful day. So, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I do.
So the subjectivity, and they deal with the subjectivity aspect of it to where I think we need to make things a little bit more. And I do think the levels should be lower in the residential area. I completely agree with that.
And it might be something in the residential
And it
areas
already is lower.
when it's night, even
With
lower
having
it
these
even
little-
further.
Enclaves of commercial.
Well, that's
surrounded by
a single
residential.
prop, well, right across the street too, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's truly an out parcel, in that respect, so.
I agree. I think we need to have something that you guys can enforce and hold people accountable for when it's there, but it's, I can't imagine how difficult, even if we could, I just don't foresee how we can get something that's going to be perfect. in
I don't
every
either. That's why they
scenario.
have judges and lawyers.
Well,
Because, I mean, even in a residential neighborhood, when it's 11 PM at night and Clemson scores a touchdown for about 2 minutes there, these guys are going to be going ballistic and then it calms down. But
Didn't
in the
happen as much
meantime,
this year, so.
the damage has already been done to the neighbors.
well,
I was going to ask, in a residential area, let's say I'm trying to go to sleep at 11:30, 11:45, and there's a group out on the deck right next to me. They're not really playing music, but they're just talking loud and so
This
forth.
out.
Is that considered a nuisance?
It
type?
is. It is. And we actually, I mean, I know that there's a certain property that was a short-term rental for, and I'm not talking about short-term rentals off.
I
This is
didn't mention-
everybody, but it was saying that it would house 10+ people. And I do have a couple that was complaining on this place quite often because they could hear they were outside after a certain hour, but fortunately who property managed it, then they made their own regulations at 10 PM, everybody's inside. But so just an example of what you're talking about. But I mean, we've gotten a call that there was a party going on. It was just a group of men, not to mention any names, celebrating, watching a football game. There was no party.
I was
And,
just talking about.
right, so.
That was a Georgia game and I was not.
So we go up there and it's literally 5 men out there on a deck watching a football game. So, yeah.
Is this something we can send to the planning board for a little bit of review and then come back to us, or what do you?
this is not a
Or do we-
land use.
Yeah, this is code of ordinances, so the planning board would not have
We send it to
jurisdiction.
Nick.
Yeah.
And I think you, me, Buzz, Josh, we met several years ago at the PD and discussed this, and
There's no good answer.
there's no
because
good
people-
answer.
A lot of times people want to come up for the calm and the quiet here. And some people are up here not for the calm and the quiet. And they're up here to meet friends and party, and that makes it, that
Correct.
creates part of your conflict. And
But
we have the
also-
topography that
Yeah.
amplifies sound.
Correct. And, we've had a call at 8 o'clock one night because the neighbors didn't appreciate the kids that were playing tag or something out in the front yard over here on 5th Street.
See,
And it
that's-
was annoying the neighbor, but it was children. Now that we, look, we're not going to do anything. It's 8 o'clock at night and there are kids playing, so.
But I do think that there is a distinction between someone living in a commercial downtown area
Sure.
versus residential. The downtown is not designed as a residential area. So people should have the understanding when they move into an apartment, there will be commercial noise generated at a higher level than
Oh,
if you're living out in the
absolutely. I don't think there's any
neighborhood.
question about that.
And ideally in residential areas or even in commercial, our first steps to go and, ask them to turn it down. And I'm in a discussion right now, emails back and forth about an officer asking, he didn't have a decibel reading tool. So, with him, it was taken with the other officer that already left. We've since fixed that issue this week, but, he just simply asked, well, would y'all mind turning it down? And, so it's not like we can't ask. I can ask anybody to do anything. Doesn't mean they have to, but, so that's created some issues as well, but, whatever guidance or whatever y'all can come up with to make this better for us and everyone would be great.
Well, the red lines that you came up with were an attempt to make it much more objective, primarily it's everywhere, but primarily in the commercial district. So, and I know you did a lot of research and pulled from, so obviously the next step would be to send it to Nick and see if this makes sense.
Yeah.
In order to accomplish that.
And in at where I've highlighted in yellow, I even provided some guidance for the officers, time of day, duration, type of noise, location, just so they would have a guidance. You can tell an officer 17 times, just go tell the complainant it's under the decibels, and they may still ask them to turn it down. Can't hold everyone's hands, but at least this would give us more of a guidance on how to,
Okay.
have a
Nick,
standard.
would you like to respond to what we've been discussing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the devil will be in the details kind of thing, because right now, the way it's currently worded, there is the definition for a noise disturbance is, somewhat subjective. That is true, but changing it to be an unreasonable intrusive noise, which, you have the definition in there as a noise that intrudes over and above the existing normal background noise at a given location, or the relative intrusiveness of a sound, depends on its amplitude and stuff like that, is still, I guess we'd have to just work it through, because I think there's still in those definitions some subjectivity in it as well. So, and like, I know I looked at Asheville's because I know you cited that, and they have the same thing where, the factors that you listed there, but they also have the subjective kind of standards for what a noise disturbance is. So, all that to say, I think to a certain extent, we can put the factors in, and then the officers can, point to those factors. But there is I think it's just inherent in every noise ordinance, there's gonna be some subjectivity that's just gonna have to be the officer discretion.
Okay.
Chief, one last question. I'm going to use the smokehouse again as an example. Who receives a citation if you were to write one? Does the person making the noise? Does it the property owner?
Well,
And I hate to use the room short-term rental, but that's kind of where I'm.
well,
thinking.
and I will use that just for an example, because that's what we, as a group, had came up with, that if it's short-term rental, then because of visitors being here and not really knowing who's renting the house or whatever. So for that, we would issue a violation of any sorts to the property owner.
Property owner.
So smokehouse, the manager, some managers there, there's going to be a property manager there, they would get it.
Okay.
Because they're the one actually producing the noises. It's easier to locate that person.
And it's a
The
civil.
ordinance,
It's
Yeah,
a
the
civil ordinance violation.
Go ahead, Nick.
yes, and the ordinance says the person making it. So it could be an occupant, it could be the owner, it could be, whoever is at making the noise disturbance.
Okay. Well, I think where we are then is that the police chief and your staff should get together with Nick
Yep.
and come up with a proposal and bring it to one of the board meetings for our further review.
Okay.
Okay?
And maybe some guidelines for your officers.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that number 1 through 5 at the bottom of one of the pages is for the guidance with the time, duration, location.
Right.
'Cause obviously B1, it's commercial district, so they should have, obviously not as restrictive as residential areas. So, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. I think we're going to let you stay
I'm
here.
going to call the person that brought it to my attention up.
Okay, that is the next item, and that's the Highland Code of Ordinance Amendment, Article 4, and that would be stopping, standing, and parking, Section 790-99, parking not to obstruct traffic.
Yes.
Officer McCall.
So I'm here today to propose an amendment to our current ordinance, section 7-99, regarding parking that obstructs traffic. As it stands, the ordinance requires that at least 10 feet of roadway remain open for the passage of vehicles. While the current ordinance may have been effective when originally adopted, current conditions have changed with an increase of vehicular traffic. We are proposing that this ordinance be updated to align with North Carolina General Statute 20-161. Under that statute, vehicles are not permitted to be parked on the main travel portion of the highway unless they are disabled and cannot be moved. Additionally, state law defines a highway as the full width of any public roadway, meaning streets are already included under that definition, and that's listed under 20-4.01 subsection 13. This amendment would not introduce a new concept, but rather bring our local ordinance into alignment with existing state law. This request is based on what we are actively encountering in the field. We have seen a noticeable increase in calls related to vehicles parked in the roadways. During patrol, it is not uncommon to observe multiple vehicles, sometimes 6 to 8, parked along a single stretch of road. In many cases, these vehicles are either fully within the roadway or partially off, extending into the ditches and onto roadside shoulders. These conditions create several concerns. First, they present a clear traffic hazard, requiring drivers to enter opposing lanes in order to pass, which increases the likelihood of collisions. Second, many of our streets include blind curves, limited visibility combined with roadway obstructions significantly elevates the risk to both motorists and pedestrians. Third, we're seeing ongoing damage to ditches and roadway edges as a result of vehicles attempting to park off the pavement. This contributes to increased maintenance needs and long-term infrastructure wear. Finally, obstructed roadways can impact emergency response. When fire, EMS, or law enforcement personnel are delayed due to blocked access, response times are affected, which can have serious consequences. Updating this ordinance to align with state law will provide a clearer and more enforceable standard, improve roadway safety, and help protect public infrastructure.
Let me bring up an example, not so much for construction vehicles, but just a situation. I live on Pinecrest. I have a big, long, looping driveway. I have traditionally a family gathering at Thanksgiving. I am considered among my family members as the parking Nazi, because when they start arriving, I get out there and say, you park here and you park there and so forth, and nobody parks on Pinecrest because, and this is my interpretation, if they pulled up and then, let's say, 3 feet of their cars sticking on the road and the rest is on the side, I've always said that would be a violation and you can get a ticket. Am I not correct?
You are correct.
If it follows state law as it's written right now, it's as long as there's 10 feet of travel space.
It's okay?
7-99, if you look it up, it says as long as you allow 10 feet of travel space. But we were up Holt Circle, for example, and there was a construction there. We barely made it through with her vehicle, an ambulance, fire truck, none of those would have made it. None of them.
And at times you can't get
And they weren't
any
on the
car
job
through
site.
it.
Exactly. They had left to go to lunch and left all the vehicles.
Right.
And jumped into one.
And there was a case of construction on Colisager on a curve, earlier this year.
I
where
dealt with that Tuesday.
It was the same problem. And you would have to sit there and say, am I going to clear this and not catch somebody's bump?
Yes, sir.
Lower Lakes, not a problem. Harris Lakes had some issues. I know that's an easier road to travel because where they're parking is a straight shot and you have a bird's eye view of the next street. But some of these roads, Big Bear Bend, North Drive,
North Drive, South Street has issues. Oak Street, the part that's over by the ice skating rink was completely blocked for several days last week because of the construction in one of those buildings over there. But Big Bear Pen was the one that had 8 cars in a row in that curve.
and there was lower driveways they actually did.
All right, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second. I live on Holt Circle, so I'm very familiar. I have to battle it every day.
Every day.
One way or the other, I have to. But in reality, what are they supposed to do? I mean, they've got a job to do. They've got to build a house there. I mean, are they supposed to park on back street and carpool every day? I mean, I think if we come up with something, it's got to be realistic
And
to
that's
make
what
it
I,
work. And I'm also going to play devil's advocate as me being not much anymore, but being in the landscape business for so long. It's difficult on us a lot of times when we pull up to service a yard for 15 minutes and we kind of have to pull in the ditch. Of course, we're going to repair it, being landscapers, but it's difficult. I think this will have to take a little bit of thought process and figuring out what we're going to do to make it work for.
yes, sir.
for
And I have
everybody.
recommended that to some of the construction sites. You guys need to carpool because one person in every single car that comes up. And then, like I said, they all leave for lunch and they all jump in one car.
It's tough. Yeah, I know. It's
So-
with tools, et cetera. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
coming up with a workable thing. Another thing I'd like to mention is, for our commercial areas in town, we have a permit process of, okay, you can close down half of Church Street, or you can take up 7 parking places. You can close the sidewalk. You have to walk around, but in our residential areas, you really can't. But I have taken just discussion with people about if they block the sidewalk, they get asked to move, but yet you can kind of do it in commercial. I don't know if the town ought to come up with an idea. If a house is being built, can they use the sidewalk if they're getting out of the road? Is there another manner of how we might handle that? So,
Because right now, I mean, we could technically, the town ordinance states 10 feet of travel distance. If it's really bad, we could go out there and write $250 state citations. We don't want to do that.
yeah.
We really don't. So whatever you guys can come up with, and we
Okay.
can come up with, work collaboratively, wonderful.
And I do believe we have a contractor here, if they would like to weigh in.
He and I spoke this morning.
So if the rule says 10 feet now, if you can't drive through there, it's not 10 feet, so give them a ticket. But you gotta allow people the ability to work, or let's drop our, built upon percentage, because we got to build a parking lot before we build a house. I mean, you're gonna have to change a lot of ordinances, and carpooling doesn't work, just tell them.
Well, for instance, Lee and I talked about this morning, is that you might, so that maybe some have carpooled. And then you have different,
Subs.
subs
The
coming.
plumbers, the
Plumbers,
electricians, the
electricians.
sheet rock. Yeah,
that
at the same
come and
time.
They didn't know, so it's difficult.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
It's become exacerbated by these houses being built on roads that are barely 10 feet wide as they
Right.
That's
set
correct.
they
Right,
stand.
that's our problem right
And,
there.
Right, and
and
they're off the
like I'm
back.
using Holt Circle as the house, the project is next door to where I used to live. And that particular project, there is nowhere to get off the street. Now, there should be by now, because they're framing up, so they should be able to pull down the driveway, but then in the beginning, I mean, I don't even know, there's so many times, and there's nowhere to turn around on that road either, so backing up and trying to find a driveway, but they're all on an angle, so you can't really go the other way, and some of the roads coming out can only go that way, they can't even bypass it realistically, so those instances are a little bit more cut and dry, and carpooling doesn't work because everybody has their tools in their car. However, there's going to have to be some instances where they got to figure something out because you can't get off the road at all. And that is one. Work out a deal with a neighbor that's never here, for instance, which in that instance could have happened, but, so.
Thank y'all. Yeah, you've got my mind twirling on it now, what we can do.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about on that.
So how do we want to proceed as a board?
Um,
Can I ask a question too, just for drafting purposes, when we go to actually draft it, and the officers may want to weigh in on this too, but the ordinance currently says the street and the you have to leave 10 feet of width of the roadway. And the statute says, you can't leave it on a main traveled portion of any highway. So I think we may want some direction about what geographic area we're talking about. Is it is it that you can't park on any portion of leave unobstructed or unattended, any portion of a paved area of a town street? Or, I mean, does that include like if you're in the, parked kind of on a right of way area that's not paved, but it's still within, the town's right of way? These are questions that I think we will need some direction on.
and this would also apply, forget about construction, don't make them, the other side of it is this would also apply to Main Street where, where not just deliveries, but Main Street where, and it's not always big vehicles. We talked about this the other day, that sometimes it's the smallest vehicle and they're the rear end of their car in the center parking, they're out in the road 3+ feet. And then the full-size vehicles can't get through. So it would apply to that as well. Yeah. What already does in that instance, because it's the entire roadway at that point. Okay.
Well, I would say that there are certain roads we have, especially in the town area, that kind of serve as a function. I know there's construction, but they also do deliveries, like Oak Street from 4th all the way over to 5th. That's been used as if you will, I hate to use the word, an alley for deliveries. And the whole intent of that was to keep those trucks from loading on Main Street. So, a delivery truck can create these kind of obstructions also.
Well, that park up on, 4th Street, southward, right in the middle of the road in the mornings, and the entire parking, every parking spot's open, so yes.
Okay.
The stuff y'all have to put up with.
Yes.
Well, I think we're talking about where to go with this. Again, I think our town attorney and our police officers should meet and draft, some type of change if they can find a pathway to do that. Okay.
Pat, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I'd appreciate, could somebody clarify what the Sunday rules are for landscaping in the afternoon?
There's no commercial work on Sundays.
Now, would you consider what I'll call the pickup truck with 2 guys and a leaf blower and weed or commercial?
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
But if a homeowner is out doing yard work on Sunday, that's a different
That's not
level.
commercial.
It's
But
not commercial.
if he hired
but
somebody
if
to
somebody's
come
getting paid,
and
then,
do it, it's,
somebody's getting paid. The reason I ask is a couple Sundays ago, the only nice day, we were run off the deck. It was for hours on end back in Palisade and Foreman Road. Got out there, rode around. It was a typical guy on a pickup truck. It wasn't any of the big commercials, too understandable. And I think it'd be very helpful if you would, in one of your letters, publicize what the rule is. And, I think an easy enforcement of that is, have whoever's working on the Sunday drive around with their windows down. And there were 3 different groups doing it on a Sunday afternoon for hours. And along the same lines is, I was gonna report it, and I was looking for the 24-hour hotline that was approved last year. And apparently the 24-hour complaint line never got put in place.
That's right. But you can call, the non-emergency 911 or even 911 and the police will be contacted and they will go and investigate.
What's the status of the hot, is that dead?
Yeah, the hotline did not work. Did not work out with the software platform we had. That was for short-term rentals.
Well, I think.
So the best thing to do is just call the non-emergency number
Yeah.
and then they can dispatch will call out the police department. But it is complaint driven, so the police don't know what's going on until somebody calls and lets them know.
If anybody wants to come to my deck on a Sunday and sit out there,
Is it,
we can point out a whole bunch.
If you would call us that way, dispatch will contact us, we'll know all of it.
is it anything or is it the leaf blowers?
Leaf blowers,
Weed eaters.
chainsaws.
Yeah.
weed whackers.
You have to try that.
Yeah.
The non-emergency numbers are on that.
Yeah.
Under our.
And on Saturday, the working times, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, 9 to 4. So you can have here construction work and landscaping on Saturday, but by 4 o'clock, that's supposed to stop.
Is there any consideration of rolling that back? And the only reason I
Um,
ask that is that I hate to be a second homeowner, drive all the way from Charlotte and listen to the leaf.
Well, Fred, about a year, maybe 2 years ago, we had a lengthy review of this issue. And these are the new times that we put in. And I know Commissioner Tate was not on the board at that time, but he weighed in talking about the necessity of doing some landscape work on
Yeah,
Saturday.
part of it is sometimes these are people's second jobs that they do on the weekends. And part of it is rains all week and you can't do anything. So you got to take the good days when you can. So we tried to balance, the second homeowner who comes up and wants the calm and the quiet with the folks who live in Highlands and actually have to deal with the weather that doesn't always cooperate with them. And it's not a cut and dry thing, and it's not, nobody's gonna be happy, and if nobody's happy, we must have done it right, so.
Well, the Sunday enforcement would help with it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any more discussion on these two topics that we were working on tonight?
I'd like to be a part of that discussion with the police and Nick on the parking
Okay,
street issues, if that's okay.
sure. Be no problem at all.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'll be good, I promise.
Any more comments related to these two topics? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for us to adjourn the workshop and then reconvene at 7 for the official board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.